I'm Lois, and today we're going to be talking about nonverbal communication and culture. When talking about this, we first need to identify that there are two different types of cultures. We have a high context culture and a low context culture. In high context cultures, we tend to see communications that are more indirect and understated, whereas in low context cultures, they tend to be more direct and precise. We see that in high context cultures, disagreements are taken very personally, whereas in low context cultures, they're more depersonalized. We look back to high context cultures and we see that they tend to stand more closely to each other. They're more verbally indirect, but they are also very linear and organized in what they say. They focus on accuracy. Whereas when we look at low context cultures, we see that words are highly, highly valued, and but they're more verbally indirect at the same time. They focus on speed and efficiency rather than accuracy, like high context cultures do. So now that we understand this, we're going to look at 6 different types of nonverbal communication and how culture affects them. We're first going to move to eye contact. In eye contact, we can see that there are different cultural values about how much or how little eye contact should be used in conversation. In North America, for example, which is a low context culture, we find that eye contact is more valued, that people see it as more of an equalizer, that you should look someone in the eye when you speak to them. However, in more high context cultures, such as different Asian cultures, it is more respectful to avoid eye contact. We can also look, secondly, to touch and space. We find that there are a lot of different rules in each country and each culture. For example, in America, we're not a very high-touch country. Any accidental touch is very quickly withdrawn from because we don't like doing that. However, in Japan, accidental touches are just regularly normal. Nobody really cares about that. They are not as afraid of touching people. And then we also find that just in the spatial aspect, in many different cultures, they stand very close to each other when they talk. It's very normal to do that. However, in a lot of other countries, it is much more normal to not stand within an arm's reach of someone while you're speaking. Okay, we can then look to different gestures. Gestures are always learned culturally. They're not something that can be seen across the board. Some cultures may share in different gestures, but since they are learned culturally, they tend to be very different in every country. For example, we use this as an okay sign in America. However, in Japan, it can be used to mean money, but it can also be used to flip someone off in other cultures. Looking next to different facial expressions that are used, we find that many of the emotions, the sad fish emotions, can be seen the same across the board. Everyone uses the same emotive facial expressions, and you can look at anyone from a different culture and pretty easily see the emotion that they are feeling. However, this is not the same for different expressions. A wink, for example, in Latin America can be seen as very sexual and maybe someone's trying to hit on someone. However, in China, it can be seen as a very, very rude thing to do. So we can see that although emotive facial expressions can be read across the board, not every expression can be. We can next look to posture as a nonverbal communicator. By looking at the way someone is standing and holding themselves, we can see so much communicated, from attitudes to emotions. Of course, this varies across cultures as well. For example, in America, we can see when someone stands with their hands on their hips, many people see this as a power stance. A lot of times people will even use this stance to feel more powerful in order to help them before a presentation. However, in Argentina, this stance is seen as something of anger. This will not be read as powerful, it will be read as angry. So lastly, we can also look to paralanguage as a form of nonverbal communication. Paralanguage, of course, varies across every culture as well. what we can see is that within verbal messages, the pitch, articulation, loudness, all of this has an effect on how the message is read. We can see that being more loud can convey more anger, and this is especially so in Britain. However, being more loud in India is something that they just see as something used to call attention to the person. They don't see this as anger, it's just, hey, I need your attention, please listen to me. We can then kind of also look at silence and how that affects a conversation and a message and communication. In America, since it is a low context culture and words are so highly valued, we don't like silence. It tends to make us feel very uncomfortable because we want somebody to be talking to us rather than just staring at us. However, in many Asian cultures, which tend to be more high context, they value silence. It can be seen as what we can see from all of this is that nonverbal behavior varies vastly between cultures, especially between high context and low context cultures. Much of this information was taken from Rebecca Bernstein's article, 7 Cultural Differences in Nonverbal Communication.